Because what you see is just an evolution of human intelligence. Back in what looked like the ancient world, the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, the ancient Egyptians, Babylonians, Aztecs, Mayans, go around the globe. But in that old world era, humans didn't know much about anything. They didn't know what a flood was. They didn't know what an earthquake was, a volcano. They didn't know what the Black Plague was. So they just ascribed to these events and, forces of nature, extra, a force that was beyond them, that was outside of their realm of understanding. And they came up with the idea there was gods. The gods. It might be one god, might be 500, it didn't make any difference. God was to explain the ignorance of what they knew. Just to cover it up and just say, well, it's in the God's hands, it's in God hands, it's, you've heard it over and over. But those days are over. You have evolved out of that. You are no longer in that ignorance. You have much more understanding about the world, about what is actual cause and effect of things, than those people ever did. They were all essentially illiterate. The vast majority of the population was illiterate anyway. So the idea of because everything seems so dramatic, and because it was dramatic because they didn't know, and it just seems so powerful and magical, and it's just mystical and extreme. How did this happen? Why? What did this do? Why? Well, you know much more now. Because you actually looked. You had the ability to actual research and study and analyze. And you had others who did the same thing and analyze and study and actual compare findings and say, well, yeah, if you do it this way, this is how it works. And it works that way. Poof, you just pop the myth and bubbles of all sorts of superstitions, of all things that were attributed to gods or God, doesn't matter. So a key part here in the 21st century is all of you 21st century people are getting at that there never was God or gods. That was just what they had to identify and kind of make up back then to cover their ignorance. You're not there anymore. So you don't need to keep lugging along all those dark age religions with all those myths. A creation myth. You don't need a creation myth. It's just a story. Fantasies made up. People who didn't know. What you're into is reality, where you are at in your life, in life of your kids, what you want to teach your kids is reality, free from myth. That's far more important and far more profound. Because once you've wiped out the whole thing of this God fantasy, where are you? You're with you. In your life, in your decision making, your responsibility. What do you do in your life? Because all of us are guaranteed. We're born here, we live for some duration, and we die here. Drop the body. Well, if that's guaranteed. So what do you do during the time frame, that you're living? Well, that's so simple, folks. Are you ugly and violent and aggressive and demented and racist and bigoted? Are you like Trump and all the Republicans with all their religious fascism and their Nazi and Ku Klux Klan members and their conspiracy theories about everything to hide away from truth and facts? And, of course, criminal abuse like Trump and all those other fools. Or do you live a life where you understand reality? You're born here, you live for some duration, you die here. What do you do while you're alive is dependent on you. Not some myth, not some big judging daddy-o watching up and saying, oh, making a list, checking it twice, gonna find out who's naughty or nice. You throw all that out. And you have to, because so many of those myths are used to justify repression against women, repression against gays, repression against other races, repression against people who just aren't part of the same religion. It's that lingering stupidity that goes along with all those Dark Age religions. All sorts of stuff that you just got to get rid of. You got to let them go. Entirely. Not be part of that Dark Age religion at all. Because as long as those stories are in their little books about the stuff, well, some right-wing nut is going to come back and say, well, in the book, it says that women are of secondary status. Just look at the creation myth. It keeps being brought back. You hear it over and over again. That some right-wing nut comes back and says, oh, you're restrained from the book and from the fantasy god teaching, and you have to be more austere and more repressive and more narrow-minded and more ignorant. You look at history, it's happened over and over again. Here you're at a crossroads in human history. So much has come to this point of decision. Big time decision. And I mean big time. Because it isn't just religion. It's also the economic system of the whole planet. Because essentially the whole planet's economic system has been based on this grotesque fraud that has poisoned and polluted the whole planet. And has poisoned you and your kids. You got Covid-19 because of it. You got all sorts of other things that are bubbling along right now, already. That's here. Climate change is here. So, of course, the old Dark Age people and all these Republicans are the main voices saying, no, there's no climate change. Oh, no, it's just made up. Oh, Jesus. Of course they are. Because it destroys all the profit-driven criminality of all those big corporations who have been poisoning and polluting you. Because you're going to close them down, you're going to shut them down, you're going to demand that they have no pollution of your air and your water. Your first. It's your air and water and food first. Any business that poisons your air, your water, you close them down. They're out of business. Because it's about you and your kids. It always has been about you and your kids. Down through history, this is part of the awakening that is happening. It's about you. And the same way with religion as well. You can't keep pulling along those old Dark Age religions trying to tell you that women are secondary status. That gays can't agree. Oh, no, we can't have rights. Oh, geez, no. And that other justifications for violence and repression just because of the religion. They can't do that anymore. You've seen the result. It's horrific. It's continued ignorance. It's continued poisoning and polluting you and your kids. So it's big time. It's big time change that has to happen. Big time. And right now, here in the U.S., the main entity that is the continuation of all that repression and violence and stupidity and racism is all in the Republican Party. Just look how they vote. Just look what they do. Just look what they act like. Just look what they say. Of course they deny climate change. Republicans get their big cash money from corporations poisoning and polluting you. So climate change, reality, closes them down, these corporations down. Or they gotta spend money to change and stop their pollution systems and all that stuff. They don't want to do it. Dramatically, they don't want to do it. They lose control of you. They're out to dominate you. When it's, in reality, you're first. You always have been. We the people. It doesn't say we the corporations. It doesn't say we the white people. It doesn't say we the Christians. It correctly says we the people. All of us. Equal rights. You're first. And don't worry, oh boy, don't worry. Plenty of businesses are ready to come in there that are going to supply all sorts of services and product in an environmentally sane way. And you're going to have to spend a lot of cash, a lot of your tax money, cleaning up that mess, which you also justifiably and legally can be making those corporations pay for. Because they knew plastics were poisoning. They knew their chemistry that they were using was toxic. They knew it, and they did it anyway. And that's why they're criminally liable. And that's why they're so scared of climate change reality. Now the religions, these dark age religions, they don't want to accept science either in climate change. Oh no, they don't like it either. Because science keeps pointing out and popping all their mythic bubbles. At the same way. All their myths. Science actually looks, researches, and studies what is. And all those religions' God is nothing but fantasy and stories. Made up by ignorant people from 2,000 years ago. So of course, those, once again, mostly here in the U.S., it's the Christian extremist nuts that are all in the Republican Party. They don't like science and climate change either. Well, that's why, bingo bongo, they're all in the Republican Party. The party of repression. The party of racism, the party of denial of fact. That's why they got Fox News, to do nothing but spew lies and distortions and destroy. It even says at the bottom of Fox News. Now you have to look quick to see it. But they've been called out on so many of their lies that Fox News has had to say down there, put a disclaimer and say that they're not really news. It's just for entertainment purposes only. Because they can't stand on actual facts and research. Same with religion. It can't stand facts of research and science. And the big corporations can't stand the facts and research of science. See what a threat. What a threat it is. So they're the repressive agents. They are the Republican, and like I say, mostly here in the U.S., that's the Republican Party. Those are the repressive agents trying to hold you back, trying to make you continue to think small. Think small. Keep your mind in a little box. When the world in your life is to be big, is to embrace reality, is to be profound, which you are inherently. It's there within you, as it always has been. Reality. Reality is what we are in the 21st century. If human beings are going to continue on and actually change their poison and pollution and ignorant, past and take a new direction, it's about reality. Equal rights. Facts and science and research. That's the 21st century. There's always, in this face of great change and the necessity for great change, there's always those who just don't want to do it, and because they're protecting their profits and their small-minded repressions and prejudices and biases. They can't stand it. It pops their bubble. But otherwise, if you stay small, if you stay in that direction, you're only going to get worse than Trump. You're only going to get worse than Republicans. You're only going to get worse poison and pollution of you and your kids. Racism and fascism, destruction of your rights. Guaranteed. It's only going to get worse as they try and hold you back, deny reality, to protect their profit and their ignorance. You can't let that happen. You don't want that to happen. You've arrived at a major crossroads in human history, where humans, if they continue with this ignorance, it'll be the human species was the most corrosive, vile species that come down the line of evolution. Because it would be only the human species that managed, in their ignorance, intentional ignorance, in their racism, in their driven economics of poison and pollution for profit, that managed to poison the whole planet and destroy themselves. That will be the legacy of humans. Or you've got to change course, and change course pretty quick, and get going pretty dramatically in the new direction to rectify and clean up and go in the new sane direction. That's about you. About you and your kids.